It's Final Word with Adam Collins and Jeff Lemon, and with us today we have Middlesex legend, Ireland international Tim Murtagh on the cusp of a new season. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning. How are we?
We're very well. We're very well. We were thinking last week, Tim, who should we get to come on the show to talk about county cricket? You know, April, it's spring in the air, albeit it didn't feel like it this weekend watching you at the Oval. But it's that time of year where everything starts anew. You've done this so many times before. How does it feel at age 39, gearing up for another long campaign?
It feels good. I don't know if it's because sort of last season was so shortened, obviously COVID wise, and only played four championship games last year. So I don't know if that's kind of sort of affecting the way I'm feeling now. But yeah, I kind of feel good, feel ready to go, excited. Everything I think probably every cricketer feels in the whole country. As you say, I'm 39, but I'm probably no different in terms of how excited I am to get going. Excited just to get out the house, get away from the wife and kids. That's probably the main thing. No, but yeah, really kind of looking forward to what should be hopefully a good sort of long and hard season.
I was thinking about your lockdown last year, which, to my way of seeing it, maybe it wasn't this way, maybe I just got a snapshot of it, but you seem to spend a lot of time responding to Twitter trolls who are going after the alt-right Tim Murtagh, the Trump supporter in America. Of course, it was election season. You got quite involved with that and had a fair bit of fun with it, but that feels a long way from that playing around on Twitter to kind of taking the field at Lords this week.
Yeah, I think that kind of kept me sane during that kind of lockdown. It was, obviously sort of getting all these messages from these crazy Americans and just basically geeing them up and winding them up. So yeah, that was good fun for a while, but yeah, it'll be good to get back to doing sort of what we do best, I guess.
And are you able to maintain that enthusiasm even when it's about -5 degrees and you're being sent out to play over the Easter weekend and freezing every extremity off?
In a word, no. It's look, cricket's a great game and we love playing it, but when it's that cold, there's not that much fun involved. It's kind of pack as many jumpers on, bowl your overs that you need to, and get the hell out of there basically, and hope that it warms up at some point, which it seems to have got even colder the last couple of days. So we'll see what happens Thursday.
Yeah, I was thinking about the logic of sending you out to play in a friendly. I mean, you've played so much cricket, a frightening amount of cricket over the last 20 years as a professional, thereabouts now.
Yeah.
The idea of sending you out over the Easter weekend in a 3-dayer when it's Arctic conditions, I mean, did you consider saying to the gaffer, I might sit this one out?
No, you can't do that. It's kind of, you can't really pick and choose no matter how old you are and how many games you played really. But, luckily we had 13 players off at the Oval. So there were a couple of times where I kind of said I needed to go off for a pee and then sort of didn't reappear for another hour and just sat down and chilled out for a bit, which is kind of, I guess, the old bloke's prerogative really. But yeah, I need to get my overs in. I need to kind of get my match fitness as much as possible before Thursday. So I think even given the choice, I'd always want to play, at least a couple of games before the real fun starts.
What we do on these interviews, Tim. Oh, sorry, you go, Jim. You go, Jeff. You drag it.
No, you're right.
Yep.
I was going to say, take us back to the beginning. Where does cricket first get hold of you? Because you're still playing it now, but it must have got its hooks into you relatively young for it to keep them in as you're heading towards 40.
Yeah, basically, sort of, my dad was a very good club cricketer. My uncle played professional cricket for Hampshire. So he was on the books of Hampshire for a few years in the late 70s. Played with the likes of Barry Richards and Gordon Greenidge and sort of Mark Nicholas and some of these, top quality names in cricket. So cricket's always kind of been in the Murtagh blood. I remember going to watch my dad from a young age. My brother played. My brother was on the staff at Surrey as well. We were there for a couple of years together. So yeah, it's something that was kind of ingrained in us early on as a kid, going to watch my dad play on a Saturday and Sunday, and messing around on the outfield with the other kids. I think like a lot of cricketers started really.
we had Mark Butcher on the show a couple of weeks ago, and we spent a lot of time talking about that dressing room at Surrey through the 90s and 2000s. And I suppose you are in there for a decent slab of it, albeit not playing as much as you may have liked after, turning out in the England under-19s and doing so well and kind of being on the cusp of taking off, but then being in and out of the first team. But generally speaking, it seems like an incredible time to have been around the Oval in the early 2000s when they were winning everything.
Yeah, funnily enough, we lived in the same house as Mark and Gary Butcher. Our family bought the house off them, which, we didn't know at the time who they were or what was going on. So, funny story. Like both those brothers, the Butcher brothers, went on and played for Surrey. We moved into the same bedroom, lived there for 15 years, whatever it was, and myself and Chris both went on to play for Surrey. So there's something about that bedroom in Purley that produces Surrey cricketers. But as you say, it was an amazing team to come into. I think three of my first 4 years on the staff, we won the championship, and obviously sort of nothing down to me. I was very young and in the second team at the time, but that's kind of how I thought cricket was. You kind of turn up each year, you win a trophy, you celebrate, and then you move on to the next year. That's kind of what I was born into almost when it came to county cricket. So yeah, it was definitely a lot of fun and a really good environment to grow up in.
How hard was it then to make the decision to pull up, to go across the river and head to Middlesex, which is not unprecedented? A lot of players have done that before you. Mike Selby's a notable example. But to make that choice after not getting that much opportunity at Surrey and realising that you had to do something.
Yeah, it was a massive decision. I remember I was out in Sydney actually playing club cricket that winter. And I had the contract sent to me from Middlesex out there, and I kind of went to sign it every day for about a month and just was like, well, what if Jimmy O's injured? What if so-and-so plays for England? I'll play a lot more four-day cricket. Do I really want to leave the club that I love and grew up in? And I couldn't ever imagine playing for anyone else apart from Surrey. And every day I went to sign it and kind of stopped myself. And, eventually I think sort of sense came through and I realised that it was too good an opportunity to turn down, and I was likely to play a lot more four-day cricket, which was the main reason for the move. So I kind of wish in a way that I'd probably done it a couple of years earlier now, but when that was 2006 going into 2007, so I've had 13-14 great years at Middlesex so far, and really made to kind of feel welcome ever since the first day that I walked through the door.
And I suppose there are some nice similarities to Silver there, aren't there, as far as getting these fantastic opportunities with Middlesex, but I suppose not quite getting what you would have liked necessarily out of the England setup, having played, I mentioned, the 19s, and having a great start as far as getting recognised as I think, what was it, the youth player of the year in the county championship as a 20-year-old or something like that. But as far as being able to take the step up, I know Self played some test cricket for England, but generally speaking did most of his work at Lords. Kind of comparable bowler in terms of, as he described himself, uphill into the wind, moving the ball around at a medium-fast pace rather than express pace. And which I suppose might have informed the fact that despite the fact that you get on a roll in 2007, 2008, when you take in excess of 100 wickets in a season across the formats, win the T20, but you're not really being talked about in England consideration. Talk us through that period of your career when you're kind of cleaning up for your new club, but you're not really on the England radar.
I think, you never know how close you are. I've kind of since heard a couple of conversations that I was involved in selection chats or was close to a tour maybe one year, but I think most guys have probably been in that kind of position at some point after a good couple of seasons. So it was something obviously I dreamt of and wanted to do, obviously, but never felt like I was close. As you say, sort of that was probably my golden period in those couple of years. If I was going to get picked, it was going to be then. And I guess my kind of style of bowling wasn't necessarily what they were looking for at that time. It seemed to be a lot about pace, getting 3 or 4 kind of 90-mile-an-hour bowlers. That seemed to be the kind of the fad at the time. So And then Jimmy Anderson sort of being, similar-ish kind of bowler and being a mainstay of that England team for so long. I was never really sort of seriously considered, I'd say.
There's an interesting crossover with that T20 team that wins that title early. You've got a very young David Milan knocking around the place, Owen Morgan, Dirk Nannis, a friend of the show. It must have been an interesting 11 to be part of.
It was. That kind of whole summer was great. It was one of those where we sort of signed Dirk. He was a bit sort of unknown. We kind of knew he was a bit of a tearaway fast bowler, but didn't know much about him. Murali Kartik as well was, a massive part of us winning that trophy. And both him and Sean Udall kind of as our two spinners, I don't think there were many teams that played two spinners back in those days. And it was sort of those two were definitely kind of key to our success that year. And as you say, sort of some bright young batting talent, obviously Morgie coming through and being sort of very unorthodox and people not seeing a lot of him. So it kind of gelled and a mix of sort of good senior players, Ed Joyce and O.A. Shah and like the likes of that, Tyrone Henderson was, a massive impact on that team for us. So yeah, it was one of those tournaments where you just kind of get on a bit of a roll and seem to win games from nowhere, and everyone kind of stuck their hand up at different times to get us through, and it was a lot of fun.
So through that period, you're taking consistent, massive hauls of wickets at first class level. You mentioned Ed Joyce, 2011. Your life changes as a consequence of a conversation with him. I mean, you take 80 wickets and get Middlesex promoted at like 20. But talk us through Ed Joyce, who'd gone from being an Irish player to an English player, and back to an Irish player. Of course, he's from there and took a brief stint with England and played one-day international cricket there. But as far as how he kind of twigged to the fact that it might be the case, this guy with the broad South London accent might be able to come and play for Ireland.
Yeah, it was, our family's very close. Sort of my wife and his wife have always been sort of good friends and spent a lot of time at their place and our place sort of when I was at Middlesex and he was there having dinner and nights out. So yeah, it was one dinner I remember in our kitchen. He kind of sort of asked me, obviously Murtagh being an Irish name, what's kind of your heritage, your parents or your grandparents? And I kind of said, look, my granddad was born in Dublin and from sort of him backwards, they were all Irish, and then sort of they moved over here and had my dad. So he kind of said, well, I think that would qualify you to play for Ireland. Would you be interested? And we kind of had a few drinks and we were laughing about it. It was a bit of a jokey kind of thing. I was around, I think I was about 30 at the time. So sort of any hope of getting an England call up had gone, and sort of that was sort of long forgotten about. So I sort of said, yes, of course I would. Ireland are up and coming team and get the chance to play in some sort of big world tournaments, why wouldn't I? So I didn't really think anything of it. 2 days later, then got a call from Mark Garraway, who was performance director of Cricket Ireland, and I thought it was one of the lads on a wind-up, to be honest, at first. But yeah, I kind of set the motion of getting my passport. I had to find all my original granddad's birth certificates, which my aunt had, who was living in France, so she had to kind of courier those over. And that was that. Yeah, kind of that was the start. I think sort of start of 2012, I got my passport and became an Irish citizen.
Did it have any echoes of the fact that you'd gone from Surrey to Middlesex, smaller move, but still a significant change of allegiances, to be able to mentally accept changing from the idea that you might play for England to playing for another country?
I think it was a lot easier than the Surrey Middlesex move, to be honest. As I said, there was no chance of me playing for England at that time, and to me it was, I might get a bonus couple of years at the end of my career playing international cricket, which I never thought I would have. So yeah, it was this kind of conversation with my wife, and I think we both were kind of like, look, you'd be mad to turn this down, and didn't really sort of see how far it would get, but we kind of thought, yeah, why not? Let's have a crack, a bit of a new challenge. Angus Fraser was very good with me. I kind of mentioned it to him initially, and I know plenty of other directors of cricket who would sort of say no and be like, got a contract to Middlesex, we want you to focus solely on that. But he's always been of the opinion that he wants guys to play as high a level cricket as they can, and almost encouraged me rather than sort of stand in my way, which I know, some directors of cricket would have done.
What an incredible dressing room to walk into with Ireland as well. I mean, they talk about the golden generation, which took them from the qualifying tournament in 2005 for the 07 World Cup, of course, the St. Patrick's Day victory against Pakistan there, and we all know what happens thereafter, beating England in 2011. So you get citizenship by the start of 2012. Soon enough, you're debuting in a one-day international against Australia in Belfast. I mean, it's a massive ride for you, having been playing championship cricket to playing international cricket, I suppose, in the space of a winter against Australia, no less. And that dressing room specifically with Ed Joyce and co, who'd taken them really onto the world map from obscurity 7 or 8 years before.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky in that I knew quite a few of them. Gary Wilson, I play with at Surrey. I knew the O'Brien brothers from having played sort of county cricket. Ed Joyce, as you say, Paul Sterling was at Middlesex. So, yeah, there were a lot of kind of familiar faces in that dressing room, but it was still quite daunting, I think. I remember the first couple of times sort of meeting up with the lads. It was a bit, felt like a bit of an outsider sort of coming in. But again, similar with Middlesex, they made me feel very welcome. And, they're an easy bunch to get on with. And, as you say, some really kind of talented cricketers over that period as well, not just, sort of seen as, hard-working, sort of close-knit unit. There were actually some really talented players in that team. So, it was great coming in and kind of settled in pretty quickly. Made my debut against Australia, which lasted 10 overs, and then it rained, as it often does in Belfast. But yeah, that was, a really exciting day, and sort of one that I'll treasure.
And then maybe bigger than the debut is the next year in 2013 when you play against England, take 3 for 33. What's it like, that sort of early period where you are coming up against those big teams and performing well? Yeah,
I loved it. That game especially. I remember, the sun being out in Dublin, which doesn't happen that often. But, it would pack 10,000 people, which was unheard of for a cricket match in Ireland, into the ground at Malahide. And, we had a real chance of winning that game. Myself and Trent got some wickets early and kind of had England under the pump, really. They were sort of 3-4 down pretty quickly. And then it had to be Owen Morgan that came to the rescue, obviously, and him and Ravi both got hundreds and sort of put the game beyond us. But I think that whole day was such a great experience. As I said, that kind of roar. I remember having got my third wicket, sort of not hearing a roar like that, even sort of at Lords in the T20 games that I played. That kind of real sort of passion behind the team, and obviously England, the old enemy, and it was, everyone was desperate for us to turn them over. But yeah, those kind of days were exactly the reason why I wanted to play and sort of experience sort of big moments like that on the international stage.
In addition to that, I suppose, allegiance to the team that you are now playing for, and as Jeff talked about before, settling into a new dressing room. Talk us through the emotional allegiance to Ireland. You mentioned your grandfather and generations before it, but how you now feel as far as your nationality, of course, having been English and living in England and all the rest, but having had that spurt being an Irish international, how Irish you feel these days, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I was nervous initially, sort of being an outsider. How would they take an Englishman? And so be it. There were a few guys, sort of Trent coming from Australia, and a couple of other guys. Alex Cusack was an Aussie and was living over there. But they're such a warm and kind of friendly people that, I felt as proud pulling on that jersey as, I hope everyone else did. And it meant a lot to me. It kind of felt like one big sort of family outside of Middlesex that I had. And it was, I really loved going over to Ireland. The people are great. People are really hospitable, as I'm sure you guys know. I'm sure you've been there on stag do's or various other things, but Yeah, it's just that kind of the people, as I said, made it and sort of made me feel very welcome. And I'll always have a soft spot. I've sort of been back a couple of times since retiring, and yeah, it's just kind of feels like there's another kind of group of friends and family over there that I can go and see anytime I want, and certainly be supporting the team from afar as well.
The 2015 World Cup it's a memorable one for Ireland. Remember them winning that close game against the UAE. They knock off Zimbabwe, the West Indies, but nearly qualify for the quarters. But you're watching from home. You busted your foot. That must have been devastating.
It was. That's kind of. I've had a lot of highs in my career, and that's the one big one that I kind of not regret because I couldn't do anything about it. But sort of bitterness at missing out on that. It was. Yeah, stupid. We always play touch rugby in the morning as warm up, and I think it was probably a month before the tournament started or so. We had like a camp in Dubai to get ready for it, and we were playing touch rugby, and I kind of sidestepped someone, and as I kind of pushed off my right foot, I kind of heard a crack. And I thought something, my boot had broken, or had sort of one of the studs had got caught or something like that. And then I felt the pain. I was like, oh, well, that's not great. And I remember going for an x-ray straight away, and the physio sort of being, don't worry, it could just be a little ligament thing. And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure I've done something fairly serious. And I'd snapped my fourth metatarsal. Which was basically a stress fracture, apparently, that kind of eventually just went. And it was just that kind of motion of pushing off on the foot. It could have gone at any time, but yeah, to go a month before the biggest kind of tournament of our lives was pretty gutting. Having to sit sort of in a boot at home watching the boys playing that tournament and have such a great time around it as well was pretty heart-wrenching.
And I suppose as galling as that was, you keep playing for Ireland, but you've got a day job, really, and that's to be a Middlesex bowler, leading the Middlesex attack, as you do now, sort of well into your 30s, lead the club again in 2014, 2015, you go past 500 first-class wickets, and then 2016 is an incredibly special season at Lord's. A strange year in many respects. I remember a lot of draws early in the year, and then Middlesex keep ticking over, and you have essentially a final at Lord's against Yorkshire over 4 days to complete the season, just by virtue of the way the draw played out. And it was like a test match. I remember being there, and it was a staggering sort of event across the board, really. What are your recollections of winning the championship, getting your hands on that trophy and being such a big part of that side?
Yeah, I think, as you say, the season started, the 2 years beforehand, I think we'd finished second both times, maybe second and third. And it felt like we were building nicely, and we had a good squad that was getting better and better over those years, 2014, 15. And then it just felt like it was our time. 2016 was like the culmination of all those factors, really. As you say, we kind of started the season relatively slowly. It's funny because the pitches at Lord's that year were quite different. They were quite slow and actually spun, and Ollie Rayner took quite a few wickets. We chased down maybe near 400 or something sort of incredible in the last innings. And I was actually over in Ireland with the Irish lads kind of watching it on a stream somewhere. And that was the moment I thought, well, hang on, this could actually be our year. We could sort of take that step up from finishing second to winning this whole thing. It kind of felt like one of those victories that defined the season. And sort of, I remember John Simpson just whacking it everywhere towards the end and getting us over the line. And I think after that there was a real kind of belief in the dressing room that we could actually do this and sort of go all the way and lift the trophy.
And that final week at Lord's, I say, by that point you've played a lot of T20 cricket at HQ, but haven't played international cricket there. That comes later, I suppose, but it's as close as you're going to get to a test match, really, and such an unusual way for it to be the end of the season. I know we had the Bob Willis Trophy at Lord's last year, and that'll become a fixture into the future. But when looking back at extraordinary finishes to county seasons, that's going to be one that stands out.
Yeah, I wasn't even supposed to be there. It was the last game of the year, and Ireland had two games in South Africa. Um, and I was due to fly out before the last game of the season. And I kind of, there was no way I was going to miss that last game of the season for Middlesex. There was a bit of a kind of tense standoff between myself and Cricket Ireland, and they were adamant that I had to be in South Africa sort of 4 days before an ODI against South Africa, and Middlesex were very good. They sort of they offered to fly me business class straight after the game. I ended up getting in sort of 24 hours before the one-day international in where was it? Joburg we were playing. So it took a lot for me to actually sort of be at that game, and there were a few kind of interesting conversations, shall we say, on the phone. But there was no way I wanted to miss that game, and as much as Ireland mattered to me, it felt like it had been a career's worth of hard work to get to that point. So there was no way I was going to miss the game, but I'm glad I did. I'm glad I kind of had those confrontations and sort of made my feelings known, and to actually be there for that last game was fantastic and great. Yeah,
it's interesting that contrast between the two. I guess when we're covering the game, we get very fetishistic almost about international cricket is the thing that everybody's most obsessed about. But most cricketers don't really get the chance to play international cricket. They don't have teams that will be able to play in the major tournaments and all of the rest of it. How do you see it now that you've got a little bit of distance? You've had such a long county and first class career, and you've played international as well. What's your perspective on, I guess, the relative values and merits of the two different forms?
Yeah, I mean, that sort of situation wasn't me picking Middlesex over Ireland. My argument was that I was still going to be there in time to play the game in South Africa, and whilst it might not have been ideal, I only had sort of 1 day's preparation. I've been playing cricket the whole summer. I didn't need any more sort of practice or training before that game. So it wasn't sort of me picking one over the other. It was just a situation where I kind of felt so strongly about wanting to be there for Middlesex. So yeah, I mean, it is different, and especially with the franchise leagues, I guess some guys have big decisions to make, and it might be as some of the England players find out that they may end up missing a test match, mightn't they, this summer, I think, if their teams in the IPL go all the way. So yeah, there are kind of delicate balances to be found, and it's important that it's not too skewed one way, and that the players are allowed to play as much of these franchise leagues and other things as they can without it impacting too sort of greatly on their international careers.
And then there's this late and beautiful twist, isn't there? So late 2017, the ICC, from nowhere really, announced that Ireland will become a full member, which in turn means that Ireland can play Test cricket. And you're still leading the Ireland attack in one-day cricket, so by extension, you get this opportunity to play with the red ball, which includes bowling the first ball in Irish Test history there in Malahide in May 2018, which was such a special week for everyone who was there. But just talk us through the emotions of having the ball in your hand on that Saturday morning. Of course, the first day was washed out, and knowing that full Malahide, not just, I suppose, the guys you were sharing the dressing room with, but all of the people in the stands who for so long advocated the merit and worthiness of Irish cricket and have been suppressed for so long, all able to share in this wonderful moment and occasion at Malahide.
Yeah, it was, as you say, such a real special sense of occasion. We sort of had a cap presentation ceremony where, obviously everyone was getting capped because it was everyone's first cap, and there were a few tears, and it was sort of done right in front of our families in the hospitality section of the ground. And it was. I never get nervous playing cricket. I rarely get nervous. But I remember kind of strapping my boots on sort of half an hour before the first ball, getting myself ready, and suddenly this kind of wave of panic kind of struck over me. I was like, right, I'm going to be bowling the first ball here for Ireland in a test match. And it just hit me. And I was like, oh my God, what if I can't hit the cut strip? What if I've forgotten how to bowl? And I had a good sort of 5-10 minute panic while I was putting my boots on and trying to pretend to everyone else around me that, oh yeah, and it's just another day and it's just another match. So yeah, I think I was more nervous bowling that ball than I have been in my career, to be honest. It was, and it probably showed. It came out as a kind of rank Yorker length ball that I missed my length by about 6 foot. But once I got that under my belt, I was kind of back to normal and business as usual. But yeah, I think it did really strike me just before going out that sort of just how momentous it was, and to have all the former Irish players there that day as well, kind of watching on and supporting us was, really good and sort of really great to see.
Of course, that first ball where the Pakistani openers literally collide in the middle of the pitch,
yeah.
and Imam Al-Haq gets taken off for concussion. But anyway, that's a whole different story. You press fast forward a few days, and after that sort of staggering Kevin O'Brien's hun in the second innings, you're still in it. I mean, Pakistan chasing 150 odd. And this is kind of the dream sequence for you, isn't it? I mean, defending a low total, all that experience to draw on, playing at home, first test match, and you get on one of these rolls and you pick up 3 early wickets, and it's all happening. You're bowling the house down, and for about half an hour, it feels as though it's going to be not just the first test in Irish cricket history, but perhaps one of the biggest upsets in the history of test cricket, full stop. That must have just been the most extraordinary feeling in the middle of that spell, knowing that you were on the cusp of doing this.
Yeah, it's kind of bringing back goosebumps thinking about it. It was, as you say, one of those kind of days where you realise it's not going to last long either way. So you've got to throw everything you have into it. And I think I bowled quite a mammoth spell and was kind of like, there's no way anyone else is bowling at the moment here. Purdy kind of kept asking me how I was feeling. I was like, yeah, fine, one more. But as you say again, I think they were 20 for 4 maybe, and you kind of were like, we've got a real sniff here. And unfortunately, we dropped a catch, and which would have had them sort of 4 or 5 down. I can't remember exactly, for nothing. And it might have made a difference. It might have not. Who knows? But it was just one of those days where you kind of know it's not going to last long, and give it everything you got, and sort of the crowd willing us on, and it was really special, and just a shame that we kind of ran out of steam a little bit, or the experience of Pakistan got them through that situation. But hopefully if that happens again for the lads, they'll know that they'll have been there and kind of draw on that experience, and hopefully go one better and actually win a test at some point, which would be magnificent.
And as far as runs go as well, we love a good stat on the final words. You got 54 not out in the first innings, 27 in the second. The first number 11 bat in the history of Test cricket to get more than 25 in both innings of a Test match. Have you got that on a plaque somewhere in your house?
Yeah, I think of all the sort of moments in my career, that's the one that I've got the most enjoyment from, mainly from winding other people up. Even recently we had a net session at Middlesex, and myself, Stephen Finn, and I kind of shouted out to one of the batters, can't remember who it was. I was like, oh, there's only 3 blokes in this net practice scenario who have got Test 50s, Stuart Law, the coach, Stephen Finn, and myself. What's going on? Pick your game up, lads. So yeah, that was great fun. Not so much fun walking out at 50 for 9, I think we were in that game, before lunch on day one. But to have got Test 50 is something that I'll live off probably longer than the 5 for at Lords, to be honest.
So there's the first test at Malahide, the second test against Afghanistan when you have that experience with the bat. And then there's the third and final test at your home ground of Lords, England invite Ireland to play a 4-day test match to prepare for the Ashes. And I think, Tim, I interviewed you, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks or 8 weeks before that, and we kind of laughed about, what if it's a green top and you get a chance to pop England in on the first day and you get to bowl from the nursery end where you've taken the better part of 700 first-class wickets. What about that? And you kind of laughed and said, well, then I'd be in it. I'd be in the game.
Yeah.
And you're in the game. I mean, as we all know, you bowl England out for 85 before lunch. You have a 5-wicket haul in the space of 78 minutes, taking 5 for 13 from 9 overs. I mean, you're the oldest player to take a maiden five for at test level at age 38, a week shy of age 38. I mean, all those wickets at Lords you've taken from the nursery end. That must have been such a sweet morning as you took one English player after another, and skiddled them for 85.
Yeah, it was one of those where I knew we were going to be bowling. As you say, the wicket was green, and the groundsman being an Irish lad, obviously had nothing to do with that, and I wasn't in his ear for the 2 months before, as you said. I always sort of thought England would bat first, no matter what the wicket looked like, and I knew that we were going to bowl. So I'd got my head around sort of the fact that we would be bowling on that first morning, which I think helped. And as you say, conditions that I know very well and a ground that I know very well. And I didn't really have any excuse to bowl badly that first morning. It was all set up for us. And, the guys down the other end did such a great job. Boyd as well, and Mark Adair, who was playing, his first test match as well, was magnificent. Got Joe Root and Joe Denley out as well. But another one of those situations where you just find yourself on a roll, and didn't want the captain to take the ball out of my hand, and you sort of get one, and it's great. I've got a test wicket at Lords against England. What a great thing. Right, I want that again. I want more and more. And I think it was just one of those sort of perfect storms where there was a bit in the wicket, and I felt in good rhythm, and sort of England having come off the back of just winning the World Cup, it was a really good time to play them. I think their minds were still a bit elsewhere with the Ashes coming up as well. So look, to take 5 wickets was magnificent. To do it before lunch on day one, and able to go off and have a big lunch and some ice cream afterwards made it even sweeter.
Your mind must drift back there from time to time. When do you find yourself thinking about it?
Usually when I'm at Lords and I'm sort of dragging someone into the away dressing room just to look at my name on the board there. It's a shame it's not in the home dressing room so the guys can see it all the time, but sometimes we end up, having a meeting maybe in the away dressing room, and the guys walk through the door and I'm just like, oh, who's the last? Oh yeah. And they're just kind of, they're sick of the sound of it now. But yeah, as you say, every now and again it does sort of take you back, and my whole family were there that day. Sort of, I think the Murtaghs kind of made up one of the tears down at the bottom end of the ground. It was such a special feeling, and to hear the Irish fans singing throughout that day, and be able to put on such a good show for them and give them that kind of glimmer of hope, I guess, for a while, that we could win a test match against England at Lords was pretty special.
There was a pilgrimage of sorts of Irish fans, wasn't there? It was an amazing sort of optic of seeing green in all of the public areas, and the sound they were making. We mentioned Malahide, how everyone came together, but there was a sort of a similar experience there at Lords. And I remember seeing Warren Dootram up in the media centre. I think England might have been 5 or 6 down, and just watching his face as these wickets continue to fall. I mean, have you had a chat? I mean, this is a question we've asked other people on the show in the past. Do you watch it back on YouTube? Do you go back and go, oh, I want to feel that moment, and to jump on, because obviously it's so easily accessible these days to watch back these highlights, but have you sort of clicked on it fairly routinely to watch it again?
Yeah, I think sort of every now and again on Twitter, or even sort of St. Patrick's Day recently, it seems to come up. I think it was tweeted by Lords, or it's just sort of that 2-minute kind of highlight reel. And I've seen it quite a few times, and can't help but just press play on it sometimes when it does show up on social media. And I've got the whole game kind of recorded at home, which I haven't actually watched yet. I kind of haven't sat down and watched the whole thing. I kind of keep meaning to, and then I don't know. I kind of there's almost that fear of, if I do watch it, it won't feel as good as it did at the time, and it won't quite be the same. But it's there, sort of at some stage I'll sit down and watch, sort of spend the whole 6 hours watching that whole first day especially. But you can't help but not see it every now and again, and yeah, it's always good for the kind of ego and self-confidence just to watch it every now and again.
And then there's that bittersweet touch, because later that year you've got to make the call about county and country, the full member status, and the complications around who's eligible to play as local players and overseas players, and all the rest of it. And you'd been able to juggle the two things for all those years, but you had to make a pragmatic choice and go with Middlesex.
Yeah, I mean, it was difficult. I kind of going into that test match knowing that it would be my last game for Ireland, and sort of hadn't told anyone, or I think sort of everyone probably had a sense that that would be the case. But yeah, I mean, I can't sort of, to have that as my last game for Ireland, to sign off with that was incredibly special, and it's something I never thought, would come around. When I first started playing for Ireland in 2012, it seemed, a long way off. Obviously, the odd one-day international against England was probably all we could have hoped for at that stage. But to finish my career in that kind of manner was, I couldn't have wished for it to go any better. And obviously sad that I had to stop playing, because it was something that I did really enjoy, and going away and touring different parts of the world and playing in different tournaments, and gave me a real kind of excitement and sort of buzz about white ball cricket especially, which I was kind of going off a bit at Middlesex. I wasn't necessarily playing much one day cricket, so it kind of re-energized and revitalized my love of white ball cricket. And yeah, I can't be any more thankful for the time that I did spend in an Ireland shirt.
And then Middlesex give you a 2-year contract extension, which takes you up to this year. So you'll be playing in your 40s when you reach that milestone in the middle of, in August of this season. But I mean, it's not as though you're slowing down. I mean, you picked up 25 wickets at 13 last year, and you were still doing what you always do. Interesting now, though, that you're leading an attack with someone like Blake Cullen in your team, who I suppose he's 18 or 19 years old, something like that, and you'll be playing alongside with him this year. So yes, you are the elder statesman of the team, but playing a different kind of role in, I suppose, these golden years of your Middlesex journey. Yeah,
it's kind of a bit scary when you think that he wasn't even born when I'd made my first class debut, which does make you feel very old sometimes. But yeah, I still have that love for the game. I still have the enthusiasm. Having these young guys around sort of keeps me on my toes, and as you say, someone like Blake and Ethan Bamber, who may well feature more this year than he did last year. It's just sort of great to be able to play around these guys and pass on any knowledge that I can, and help these guys kind of develop and come through. And we've got Toby coming back, who's had a nightmare a couple of years with injuries, and he's such a big kind of player in our team. So it's really exciting to see him back and fit. So yeah, it's just, as I say, this is actually my 4th decade of being a professional cricketer, which makes me sound very old. But yeah, I still have that same passion and hunger of ruining batsmen's days. That's still there. And as long as it is, I want to keep playing as long as Middlesex, want me, and as long as I'm good enough to get in the team and not feel like I'm letting people down, then I'll keep going.
So what do you think? Does that mean that you might go the full Darren Stevens and try to contract up again? You've got 841 first class wickets. Could get to the 1,000. Wouldn't take that many more seasons.
Yeah, I mean, everything would have to go right for me to be able to do that, and it's not something you look at. But yeah, I'd like to think this won't be my last year. It's kind of, we're in discussion of sort of on a monthly basis with Middlesex how that's going to go, and I need to keep proving that I'm good enough to do the job that I have done the last few years. And as I say, I'm kind of excited and feel ready and feel fitter now than I did probably when I was 30. To be honest, I probably look after myself slightly better, which I think you need to do if you're still playing at this kind of age. So I'm hopeful this isn't my last year, but I'm kind of, the way I look at it is it's all kind of bonus time at the moment, and time that I never dreamed that I would have still playing cricket. So I'm gonna enjoy every last minute of it.
And in the short term, Tim, I know I've got to let you go and get to training, so we might put a close to it there. But a mighty journey in the professional game. Surrey, Middlesex and Ireland, of course. Thanks for being such a great contributor to the final word today, and good luck for season 2021.
No problem. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
This is the final word with Geoff Lemon and Adam Collins. Thank you very much to Tim Murtagh for taking some time out at the start of another county season in the sunshine, the glorious blue sky that was behind Tim Murtagh. It was a lovely sight to see, and his smiling face in the sunshine. So if you want to see that, you can see it on the video version of this show on YouTube, or if you are satisfied with having just heard it, then you can imagine that. You can apply that filter retrospectively. But it was good to hear from Tim after the interesting time he's had. As we come to the end of the show, we like to look at a little bit of a Bannerman. Charles Bannerman, the first test match, the man who scored 67.35% of the runs in a completed test innings, a record that stands to this day. And so we look for others at other levels of cricket who might have found something that qualifies as a Bannerman. And Adam gets all of that correspondence because he enjoys it very much.
Yeah, and last week this expanded to Australian rules football, which we didn't expect, but I think it was who was going nuts, and we got a message. Anyway, there's been a lot of bags kicked early this season. I think it was Tex Walker for Adelaide was on a roll, and the observation was made that maybe there have been football Bannermans, and that prompted two bits of correspondence to land in our inbox within minutes of each other about the same game that was played in round 4, 1987 at the MCG between St Kilda and Melbourne. And I thought, purely because of that, I have to mention it. So Glenn Finkeld and Richard Jones both sent us almost the identical message. They were there when St Kilda got pumped. They lost by 47 points. But out of their 14 goals, 8, Tony Lockett kicked 12 goals, 3, which was 81.52%. And for that, it's a Bannerman. Plugger has a Bannerman at 81.52%. So who's to argue with that? In Richard's case, he's actually a Hawthorn supporter. He's a mad Hawk, and he's watched Jason Dunstall and Lance Franklin kick plenty of bags for the Hawks. But he was there at the G that day watching St Kilda play Melbourne in 1987, and he's never forgotten when Plugger kicked 12-3 out of 14-8 in a losing team.
He also made the point that 2 of the behinds were rushed, so you could argue that Tony Lockett actually scored 83.3% of his team score, the points that were kicked by players on his team. Either way,
I suppose we count, but we do in the Bannerman we count extras. Though.
We count extras.
I mean, there would have been extras, so I think that But I see where he's going with it, and I like it.
The leg by of Australian rules football is the rushed behind, and Dane Hansted points out an innings that should never be talked about, honestly. It should not get any more airtime. And I'm glad it's at the very end of a long show because Pranav Dhanavade, the 1,000 that he made in schoolboy cricket, beating up some 10-year-olds when he made 1,009 off 323 balls, hitting 59 sixes on a ground that was very, very, very small against some bowlers who were very, very, very small, getting dropped about 40 times by kids who couldn't catch the cricket ball. Nonetheless, it was still just above the Bannerman threshold, 68.87%. His 1,009 out of the 1,465 for 3 that his team made. So that cursed innings gets mentioned again. Dane Hansted, you have a lot to answer for. End of the show, I reckon. And about time too. This has been the final word with Geoff Lemon and Adam Collins. We have story time coming up on the weekend. We'll have some IPL stuff starting from Friday. Keep an eye out on the feeds for those particular things. Thank you to Seabus Super for supporting the show. Thank you to Woodstock Cricket as well for supporting the show for the first time. Lovely to have you on board. Thanks to everyone on Patreon who is so instrumental to us being able to keep doing what we're doing. The final word is on the Bad Producer Podcast Network with lots of other excellent shows. If you'd like to check them out, it is edited by David Collins on the audio version and Ashton Farrow on the video. And that is about all I have to say. Adam, anything else?
No, you've done it beautifully, Jeff. Thank you. As you say, long show, but totally worth it. Thanks again to Tim Murtagh. Looking forward to doing it all again on the weekend on Storytime. Bye for now.
See you later.